And we are live.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our post show for WWE Stomping Grounds. I am John Pollock, along with Wai Ting, here with you for the next 3+ hours.
3+ hours?
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna go move by move.
We'll do a deep dive on the show.
Every last thematical portion of this pay-per-view is going to be broken down into great fine detail. Every atom will be exposed that came out of tonight's wrestling at the Tacoma Dome.
Why stop at 3? Let's go 5 or
till Raw.
24 hours.
What if we just never stopped? Who would give up first? I would give up first.
I think our bodies would.
That
ultimately
is possible.
Yeah.
Yes. How are you doing?
Doing okay. The more important question though is, how are you doing after that Aqua show last night?
Well, I'm going to give an explanation to this. My honest answer is I do not know how I'm doing. I went to the concert on Saturday. It was a fun time. I'm not going to put it at the level of the Aqua concert from September, which really was the one night stand of all. I'm referring to the pay-per-view one night stand of Aqua concerts. And this felt closer to ECW on Sci-Fi in some respects.
That bad?
No, it wasn't bad. It just I knew going in, it's not going to capture the same level of enthusiasm of seeing Aqua for the first time ever after 20 years of being familiar with their music. So, and a lot of the groups were ones that were on that show in September. So I understood there was going to be a certain repeat factor that was going to be different. There were way more people at this concert. If you're not familiar, I had never heard of this place before, and I realized why. It was called Interchange Park, and I assumed I'm going to some random field out in Vaughan, Ontario. What we arrived at was an enormous parking lot that used to be the parking lot for an AMC theater, but has been converted into this entertainment space for the summer with a giant stage and tons of room. Like no one would, it was tons of people, but never did it feel super crowded. It was full of food carts and places to buy drinks, lots of washrooms, which is pretty good in a 7+ hour event that this was. So the setup was really cool. And they've been doing these weekly fests. Last week was Burger Fest, and there is a wrestling tie-in because I guess they're working with Destiny Wrestling to have a wrestling component as part of this. And this week they just threw a lot of local guys on. I think the most prominent would have been Aiden Prince or Gursinder Singh, who you've seen in Impact in some roles. But last weekend at this Burger Fest, they brought in Joey Janela to take on Josh Alexander on the wrestling portion. And they're doing a bunch of these over the next few weeks. DJ Pauly D from Jersey Shore is doing his own thing in a few weeks. There's a guy from Game of Thrones who is also, I guess, a DJ. I don't know his name, but he's doing something. So they're doing all these different fests. And I cannot imagine that they are not cleaning up with what they are making here. These tickets were $70 to $80 to get in. And then they kept the alcohol relatively cheap. I'll say relatively. Like $10 to me for a beer was less than I was expecting to have to pay for a beer at this place.
Oh man. Yeah.
Like you go to the Scotiabank Arena.
Yeah.
What are you dropping? $18 on a beer typically?
Crazy.
That's what I was expecting at this place. And so anyway, that was kind of the setup for this thing, but it's in like they had a ton of people at this thing. So Prozac played. I love Prozac back in September. This one, they were on first, and it was just kind of it was okay. Right Said Fred. I don't know why Right Said Fred was on this. Are you familiar with Right Said Fred?
Well, yeah, they're one song.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not even that big a song to me.
Okay.
It was before my time. I
Sure.
think you and I were 6 or 7 when that song came out.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't hold any kind of
as big as
nostalgic value to me.
It was like, I mean, it's as big as Wigfield to me.
It was treated like intermission because they were on, I think, third of the
How
groups.
long did Right Said Fred play? How many songs did Right Said Fred play?
Dude, like 6.
That many?
And
that's 5 too many.
There's a certain level you reach in your career when you're Right Said Fred and you say to yourself, I've got to do 45 minutes. So you know what? We're going to do a cover of Bloodhound Gang.
Oh, God.
That's
weird.
It was weird.
He's probably way older than those guys, to do a cover of like a band that came out after you. What song?
They did The Bad Touch.
That's so weird. That's him trying to like he's
like
I
a
guess
one-hit wonder doing a cover of a one-hit wonder.
so. I guess this show is kind of really centered around like late 90s, early 2000s nostalgia.
Yeah, and he to me was out of the demographic.
He's more like early 90s nostalgia,
early
and so
90s.
he to try to get to fit into the bill. That's just sad.
That's just
no
sad. One was really into it. I will say, so S Club Party was the one I was going to be most interested for because, like, everyone knows S Club 7, but I didn't really put them at like a high level in terms of being so appealing. And I was totally wrong because everyone went nuts. And it's only the 3 of them. It's 3 of the 7.
Oh, who are the 3? Can you name them?
I think one. No, I can't name any of them. I can't. But they came out and
is 3 a party?
It was funny because they did this slow song, and it was so much like this was clearly just, well, what did the Spice Girls do? And we did our slow songs. So I made the joke that they should come out with a single called When 7 Become 3. But hey, people were so into S Club. S Club was not really my thing, but I could appreciate that these people got really into them. And then in the co-feature, the co-main event, were the Venga Boys. When you think of the Venga Boys, what do you think of?
John Pollock.
Okay. We Like to Party and Boom Boom Boom. They've got 2 songs.
Sure, that too.
And again, they had to do 45 minutes. I think they went over their time. They went closer to an hour. And in my lifetime, I guarantee you, of any human on earth that is outside of the Venga Boys, nobody has ever said, you know what would be really cool? A slow song from the Venga Boys. It's like, no one is here for a slow song from the Venga Boys. So you had this problem where it's like you have your 2 big hits, you're going to sandwich them, and then they took from Right Said Fred and decided to do a medley of covers. So they just went from one to the next. They went through Van Halen. They went through like 6 different songs, but they only spent like 30 seconds per song. And it just kind of felt like we're padding our set to get through. And then Aqua came out. They were the closer. At this point, most of these people have been there a long time. We got there around 3:30 about, and they went on at 10. And I mean, Aqua had a fun set. They did a lot of their hits. And
any different from last time though?
It was a slightly shortened set, but not by much. I think there was maybe 1 or 2 songs they did more in September, and it just wasn't the same as the September show. So while I can't give this a really, like, this wasn't a great concert, I had a ton of fun. There were so many people there, and it was fun. There were way more people than I thought that were going to be in our group because I went. It was like 4 of us, and then one of my friends, his sister, and all of her friends came. So we were in like a group of 8, and kind of. We're kind of just in a section. I did run into Davey there, but I saw him very briefly. I saw him for about 5 minutes, and then that was it. He was off.
Who was he there for? I guess we'll hear his review on it.
I don't know what the draw was.
Probably
for him.
S Club is my guess.
He was messaging me during the day asking about when's the wrestling going on? When's the wrestling going on? And
what wrestling?
There was wrestling before the concert.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, I told you the Destiny they are involved in this.
Oh, I thought that was last week.
No, they're doing, well, they were there again this weekend.
Oh, okay.
And that's Aiden Prince, who I was mentioning.
Gotcha.
He was in a match, and Chrisinder Singh. They did 3 quick matches, and it was a very small portion of the day. It wasn't any gigantic wrestling show. And they were out in the heat having to do these wrestling matches. So anyway.
So it sounds like maybe you had too much Aqua over the course of maybe less than a year, I feel.
This was twice. And, it was funny. They came, I want to say it was like 2nd or 3rd week of September. So it was right when the school year started. And this one was right as the school year ended.
It's almost way too much.
It was probably coming back too soon, but they probably drew beyond what they ever imagined because they sold that thing out at Echo Beach in September. And I don't think anyone was expecting them to have that kind of, and they probably got paid a lot to come and do this headliner thing again. Like this thing sounds like they have a ton of money to put up these gigantic 90s nostalgia things. They had Rick the Temp was out there with Tony Monaco, Ed the Sock. I mean, it was
everybody's getting a payday.
Everybody was. But going back to this, so this will make sense to listeners because I've explained my allergy situation this particular season. So midway through this concert, I am like sneezing like no one's business. And I'm just feeling like I've been attacked by I don't know what. And by the end of the night, like I can barely talk. I'm just so plugged up. And this was annoying for about hours and hours of this concert. I went home and I went to sleep and just slept terribly and thought I've caught a cold. That must be it. This can't just be allergies. I woke up at 4 a.m. I was like, I could barely breathe. I had to go downstairs, take some medicine. And then throughout the day today, it was still bothering me. And now that we're speaking, I feel like pretty much fine. So
Could
I don't
be
know
the humidity.
I don't know if I'm, it could be,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Hopefully you're okay.
I don't feel sick at all. So I'm hoping it's just allergies because nothing is worse than a cold that just drags you down for 5 days.
Get that vitamin C, saltwater gargle.
I was worried this morning. I was like, I don't want to be and get you sick. But I feel fine now. I don't feel too guilty.
Don't worry about me. I should be okay.
But then my other friend, Paul, he told me today he felt sick too. So I don't know.
Jeez. It's been going around. I think I was
around a lot of people and
yeah,
a lot of people who got very, very drunk, just random people that were getting drunk at this thing.
It sounded like a good time.
It was a fun time. I had a great time there with the people I was with, and it was still like a fun little event to go to.
And you saw some listeners there even.
I did run into a few listeners. Shannon, who came up and said hello to us. We also had Steve, our good friend Steve. Jamil was there, who was an old O'Grady's regular, but I didn't actually get to go see him. But I saw him from a distance.
You saw a listener. You literally saw us. But
I saw, yes.
Got it.
And then there was this individual that I had seen earlier in the day, and he was wearing a Kevin Owens t-shirt. Okay. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then later, him and his group congregated to where I was, and he was standing in front of me for probably a half hour or so. And then he leaned over and was like, "Are you John Pollock?" I was like, yes, I'm John Pollock. I hope you're having a good time. And spoke to him for a bit too, but I did not catch his name, so I apologize.
Very cool.
Yeah,
very happy to hear. Thank you for that comprehensive report, man.
That was it. I'm done. So you got Stomping Grounds now.
Okay, well, from the I already screwed up. The Tacoma Dome.
The Tacoma Dome, the home of the infamous Booker T, not Booker T. Yes, Booker T versus Buff Bagwell match that pretty much stopped the invasion.
Yep.
We were returning to that particular scene. Mm-hmm. Actually, before we go into the pay-per-view, I do want to mention one news note that was coming out on Sunday. I just don't want to forget this afterwards, but it looks as though they have made this past Monday at Raw during the production meeting. This was first reported by Brian Alvarez, and I checked up on it. It is true that they have this new edict where there's not going to be wrestling during the commercial breaks on television. And thus we saw, I mean, it makes sense when you hear that after what we saw this week with the 2 out of 3 falls matches, elimination matches. And I guess, what is your thought on this? Because I am someone that I have complained about the amount of commercial breaks during matches. So I just don't know how many different ways you can come up with organic breaks to a match without getting too far out there. We'll see how they do it.
It's what I assume watching the matches. Like, there's no other explanation for why all of a sudden all these tag matches and all these, were either elimination or 2 out of 3 falls, except for to awkwardly kind of section them away from commercial breaks. The fact that they had also mentioned that there was, like prior to the start of a match, people saying like, oh, they took a 5-minute break before they started. That kind of stood out to me too. I think like I said on Monday or Tuesday and Wednesday, it's thinking way too hard about something like that. If this is the alternative, I would rather have matches simply go through a commercial break, because the way they start and stop these matches and try to, like jam these stipulations into these otherwise kind of meaningless TV matches is incredibly awkward. And I would say by the end of it, it just kind of made the matches themselves feel far less significant. So I think
they're throwing a lot of stuff at the wall and seeing if anything sticks. And I feel that this is just one of those things. As it was told to me, the idea presented was, well, other sports don't play during commercial breaks. So that was the thinking here. I do want to clarify one thing that I wrote in my update, because
so weird. that logic is just Yeah, I understand other sports don't play, but you're not another sport. You're a professional wrestler.
The thing that drives me nuts is when
other sports also, sorry to cut you off. Other sports also don't take 3-minute commercial breaks in between rounds. You know, like a UFC fight is a 30-second break in between, or a minute,
it's a
minute break
yeah.
in between rounds. I'm sure basketball is the same way. You know, if you, it's incredibly awkward, and I think completely goes against what professional wrestling.
Maybe we're gonna get timeouts instituted. Wrestlers can call timeouts in a match and get a 3-minute timeout. So I asked someone that watches in the US, because up here in Canada, we don't get those picture-in-pictures during SmackDown, which they'd been doing. And I asked about this. I was like, are they still doing these? And the person I asked, and this is not someone with WWE, just someone that watches the USA Network feed, was just telling me that they do them for 2 matches on SmackDown each week, for usually like meaningless matches. I don't know if those are going to continue or not. I think some people read my thing and thought that those are going to be thrown out. I actually don't know if they'll still have to do those, because that's a USA Network thing as well, where they'll have it picture in picture. The match just continues during the commercial break. So we will see this week if they continue with that. But anyway, that was kind of the maybe most interesting news thing coming into the show on Sunday night. And we got commercial-free matches tonight.
Well, absolutely, they make a difference. I just don't think this is the solution.
That was my thing I was going to say. The pet peeve I have is when the babyface will like clear the ring or have the spectacular dive to go to commercial, and then we come back and the heel's in control. And to me, that's a central changing of control in the match that I hate. When the commercial break, they usually will show the replay of it, but I find that like that's a dramatic turn in the match that you just skip over. You leave, and then all of a sudden, here's Kofi Kingston is now fighting from underneath after hitting this spectacular dive. But you're right. It's a very little thing, probably, in the big picture. But we'll see how it's executed this week and how creative they get beyond just 2 out of 3 falls matches.
It's part of a bigger discussion, I think, about just how formulaic WWE style professional wrestling is. That, you know, in order to kind of fit in those breaks, you know exactly what's going to happen. You know what part of the match is going to happen. You know what they're going to come back with. And I think that's part of the problem. But
could this be the retirement of Michael Cole announcing that this match will roll on? This match rolls on.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he'll come up with something else. Our next fall will roll on.
This show is on pause. Go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Stomping Grounds, Sunday night from the Tacoma Dome. We start off on the kickoff show with Jonathan Coachman, David Otunga, Charlie Caruso, and Booker T on the panel. We had several interviews throughout the first half hour. Xavier Woods and Big E were on the panel talking about Kofi Kingston's match, and Big E dousing himself with water continuously. And then Daniel Bryan was with Rowan, and this referee walked into the shot. So Bryan cut a promo about the referee disrespecting them, walking into their shot, and the two are defending their idea to save the tag division from people like Heavy Machinery. And he was quick to note the athletic merits of Tucker and Otis going over their athletic resumes, and yet they go out and thrust their hips like a bunch of jokes.
I thought this was really interesting, the way they did all this. And I would not doubt that this probably came about because somebody actually walked into the shot and Bryan just ran with it, and they decided to use that take because he ended up, as always, being so incredibly passionate off the cuff. So I think Bryan's just really getting to a point where he's at a different level in terms of a promo. That and the Joe promo prior to this, I think this was like a decent chunk of like, you know, sampling of like the WWE promos that I think are actually incredibly strong and up there with any other promos.
I feel we're exhausting going back to the Jon Moxley interviews, but it did remind me of the story he had about how long it takes to do these pre-tapes, and that if someone walks in, they yell cut and you've got to start again. Mm-hmm. And he's like, who cares? In real sports, someone will walk in the background. That's what happens.
Well, it's so funny that they would kind of use real sports as an excuse not to wrestle in between matches, yet real sports does so many other things that I feel WWE thinks way too hard about.
Maybe Vince McMahon has just started watching ESPN or something, and he's in a real sports kick now. Yeah,
maybe.
Anyway, this was a good promo by Bryan, and also interesting to note they did not bother in this promo to try and heel Bryan in Tacoma, and whether
it wouldn't have worked.
I don't think it would have worked, and I liked the way they went about it.
Not against Heavy Machinery.
Yeah. Shane and Drew were backstage. McIntyre said Roman Reigns was too emotional when he mentioned his family. And that takes us into our kickoff match. Tony Nese, Akira Tozawa, and Drew Gulak for the Cruiserweight title. And this was the start of a pretty hot Tacoma crowd that I thought really assisted in many of the matches.
A really hot half of a crowd that was all
Yes.
packed into one side of the arena. Yes.
Yeah, it was.
I guess, what would you say? Like, man, it was half because of the set.
It was half.
Oh,
I
yeah.
know Matt Farmer was there, and he had tweeted out he estimated about 6,000 people in attendance, which is very low for a pay-per-view.
They had actually like put like the drapes up for the whole hard camera side.
Yeah, even when the pay-per-view started, I mean, you didn't see the big sweeping pans. It was kind of just locked onto a nice shot of the hard camera side.
But if you didn't know any of that, if you weren't following any of that stuff online, they more than got away with it, because
it sounded like a loud crowd.
Sounded like a full audience with like a really, maybe that's the trick, is just condense everybody into one section in front of the microphone.
Well, they got the Magic Man now, Jeremy Borash, who was part of that Impact Zone appeal. I mean, remember when you went to the Impact Zone and you were floored at how small this place is? Yeah. They were able to shoot that place and make it look like it was like double what was really they fit into that soundstage. So they started off, they did do a break during the match, but kept it picture in picture here. And first they aired a promo spot for Becky Lynch and Lacey Evans, followed by Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre. So you have these two video package back to back. And in each one, the first is the Nancy Sinatra knockoff of the boots were made for walking. And then the Reigns and McIntyre, both spots feature the kicking ass and taking names tag.
Of course.
And it just felt so...
Of course.
Annoying when it was both of them together. I could take one video package with the line in there, but to have two of them back to back.
I don't even know what the hell the point was. I mean, other than, yes, I know to use for these little promos. I get it. But I thought they would do like a supercut of like everybody who said this over the past 2 weeks. Like Kofi,
kicking ass, and taking names.
I mean, I guess this was really the point, is to be able to kind of use them in promos like this. Was it worth it?
No, because they come off like they're robots.
Of course.
They're all robots in an assembly line reading their scripts.
Like, you can get these guys to read this in a... Like, they had Becky and Lacey actually read the lyrics to These Boots Are Made for Walking. They didn't have to have them do it in the middle of a promo in order for that thing to work.
There was a mouthful in the Extreme Rules jargon, whatever, and Corey Graves read it, and he goes to Tom Phillips or Michael Cole, one of them, said, "That's the last time I'm reading that," which was pretty funny.
I hope so.
I guess the tagline for this one, it was some longer line, but the core slogan is "All matches are created equal."
All matches are created equal, or aren't?
Are. I thought it was R.
So what's that supposed to mean? All matches are...
I don't know.
Sure, it's...
Why don't you look it up while I go through this Cruiserweight match? Gulak, first of all, they redid the spot where Tozawa first there was a dive, and then Tozawa came off the apron with the running senton into the barricade that they did on 205 Live that got a great reaction 2 weeks ago. Gulak applied the Gulak onto Nese, and that got broken up by another senton from Tozawa. Tozawa was doing a lot of saves here. And when they did the senton save, they were zoomed in on Gulak on Nese with the submission. So you didn't see Tozawa, but you could hear the crowd getting ready for it. And I thought it was like a cool angle to do it with.
It was really cool.
Although if this was real sports, you would show the person.
No, in real sports, I don't think you would. There's a chance that you wouldn't catch
if
it. If
Steph Curry was to hit a senton off the basket.
Yes.
To the floor.
Yes. In real sports, an Irish whip wouldn't work.
No, this was I thought it was a nice setup for the senton.
Cool. It was really cool.
Nese came back with his moonsault splash off the middle rope onto Gulak. Again, Tozawa makes the save. Then Nese missed with a 450 onto Gulak, recovered and hit a dude buster onto Gulak. And then Tozawa stopped the cover with a Shining Wizard, and they did this series of near falls. The audience is with them throughout. And then Nese gets sent off the apron with a flying boot from Tozawa, who then gets hit with the Torture Rack Slam. Drew Gulak pins Tozawa at 11 minutes and 19 seconds. I thought this was a great opener. I thought one of the best matches on the show tonight.
I think it might be my match of the night.
Yeah, they had the crowd, great near falls, and they didn't work your typical cruiserweight style in WWE. Like they definitely had more leeway, it felt like, in this match. Do a lot more. And I thought this was a great opener.
I think it felt like a cruiserweight style match you would see in a New Japan ring or a PWG. even though it was a half full arena, like this audience sounded as loud as any reaction I've ever heard in a WWE match. I thought it was very fast, full of counters, over top of other counters. I really like the new Drew Gulak. To me, the Tony Nese run hasn't really caught much attention outside of the division. I'm not really sure if a Drew Gulak run is going to make that much of a difference either, but I think Gulak at least has more potential because he's a bigger personality, and I think he carries a lot more aggression with him right now in this incarnation.
I think it really makes sense that here Tony Nese didn't take the fall, so it builds up a rematch, and now it's Drew Gulak going the polar opposite at Extreme Rules. He's got to be that vicious Drew Gulak.
I hope they have a match at Extreme Rules.
Yeah, they probably will. I was so like, I knew the date of Extreme Rules, but it really didn't dawn on me till they said in 3 weeks. Wow. It's like, we're coming back in 3 weeks with another one of these shows.
By the way, it is all matches are created equal.
Yeah.
So what does that mean?
Yeah, on a show that's going to have all these different stipulation matches that are not equal. It's going to be all different hardcore matches.
Yeah. Anyway.
I guess they're created equal because all of them have no rules.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, no, it's brilliant. It's great.
In Philadelphia, no less.
Anyway, yeah, if 205 Live can continue providing like these types of matches in an opening setting, I'm happy for its continued existence.
Then we go into the main show, and it opens with Michael Cole proclaiming, "It's time to kick ass and take names."
Yeah.
I was all set. I was ready. I had my notepad out, list of names ready to take, and I was going to kick ass.
All right.
I was ready. Actually, someone made a great joke about this new breakout tournament on NXT it would have been better for this tagline because it's all the guys that have come in and been given new names now.
Yeah.
Becky Lynch, Lacey Evans opened the main show for the Raw Women's title. Audience was very energetic and really behind Becky Lynch and really not into Lacey Evans. Yeah. They chanted, "Lacey sucks. You can't wrestle." There was a miscommunication early on that kind of spurred on these chants with Lacey. And then Evans worked on the ribs. And by work on the ribs, I mean she would just like wind up and punch her in the ribs. Right. And Becky was selling pretty effectively throughout the match here. There was a spot where they were on the turnbuckle and Lynch used a flying armbar to apply that Evans escaped from. Lynch then took Lacey's cloth that she had taken out and she stuffed it into Lacey's mouth like it was the mandible claw.
Yeah, it was her handkerchief that she used to wipe her pits, and then she stuffed it back into Lacey's mouth.
Right. So taking a bit of the Nasty Boys coupled with Mankind here for this spot. Becky missed a leg drop coming off the second turnbuckle. So Evans then leaped over and was supposed to land on Becky's knees, but it didn't come off very well. Evans hit a cutter out of the corner, got a 2 count, was continuing to punch the ribs. And then Evans climbed the turnbuckle, was yanked down, and Lynch just applied the disarmer. And before it was even fully applied, she tapped furiously to get out. 11:25. The positive, I thought this was better than their Money in the Bank match. They certainly had a better crowd for it. I still didn't think this was a great match. And I think just it did show the disparity between the two. But I thought it was a better match than their last outing.
When you're put in a main event title match situation with Becky Lynch, I think you're expected to perform at said level. And unfortunately, in an ideal world, I don't think Lacey Evans would be receiving these opportunities until maybe at least a year in. And thus, I think you're right to criticize it maybe as hard as you should be. But I think if you're considering that this is Lacey Evans, still relatively young in her career, on a stage like this, being given this level of responsibility, I think she did a decent job. This was a more ambitious match than their last one. It was more complex. I thought they wrestled it a lot faster with faster sequences. Certainly, there were sloppy looking moments and. I'm thinking to like the Becky's like back kick she was doing off of the corner that maybe looked a little bit off. But I would say they were like maybe 85% successful with what they were attempting. And certainly
I think the audience helped it too. Like they were really into Becky as the babyface. And even if people were not really into Lacey, they were vocal about it. So that worked for the match.
But I think it's credit to the both of them that they managed to evoke that type of reaction from this audience with the match that they provided.
So any surprise, even taking into account the main event of the finish to this match, like this was pretty definitive.
No, I think they see that. I mean, I don't know if Lacey Evans was ever thought to like take the belt from Becky anyway. I think they see the level where she's at. This is a good way to give her that initial exposure upon her debut. Can you remember like even like those months and months of her just coming out to no effect, not doing anything? At least they got to this part, you know, like where people actually recognize who she is.
Well,
now.
yeah, and she's apparently like it seems she's going to be in a big match at Extreme Rules.
True. Yeah. What is it? Mixed tag.
Yeah, I think that's what everyone expects coming out of this show. I mean, that seemed pretty clear. Then we go to the back. First they aired this promo for Ali.
Yeah.
So I guess kind of building up. He's been off TV since Super Showdown.
I've been a big fan of everything I've seen Ali do, like promo wise. I think it's him and like a wrestler friend of his out in Chicago that filmed those, and they've been great. I thought this was a little corny. I don't know if it's the same production team that was involved in this one, but it was like the concept is you're seeing footage of like, you know, people in like, I guess, I don't know, pretty shitty situations. I think you got the impression that a woman was like an alcoholic. And so Ali walks into the frame and she pours her bottle down the drain. There's like, you know, a man visibly, I guess, yelling at his like girlfriend or female partner. And Ali walks in and somehow saves the day. Like it was a little corny to me and maybe a little too self-righteous and a little too on the nose.
Well, we'll see if this is maybe he'll have like these healing powers when he comes back.
He just like appears and like everybody changes. Yeah. He's like an angel.
Yeah, he'll be like their wellness provider. He'll be able to cure alcoholism and drug addiction.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I prefer the promos.
I think that this is one of many negatives of this wild card is that granted this was a 2-week build for this pay-per-view, so you can't get programs for everyone. But man, when I was going through the list today of people not on this show and not even realizing Ali's been off TV for this cycle, you throw in the wild card, there's a lot less television time than there was 2 months ago. And you're seeing guys like Ali that are not figured in. Shinsuke Nakamura is disappeared
like, for all the
and no one notices.
For all the concern about like, you know, two out of 3 matches and elimination matches, why not just
it's going to be even less now if you're looking at doing matches like that, 2 out of 3 falls.
What I mean is why not make more room for more matches and more segments involving people like Ali backstage, even if it's not a match.
Well,
like, do we get back to the time of the Attitude Era with shorter matches?
But that to me is where I thought when I'm hearing about this of not wanting to do them during commercial breaks, do you do the idea that you're going to get quick matches on television? More people get on. You're not going to get your blowaway matches on TV, save for maybe a big main event.
You're not getting them right now with these 2 out of 3
You're not
falls
either. So save the big matches for the pay-per-views and house shows, and you get television is just to get people over. Yeah. And okay, this guy's headlining SummerSlam. He's running through people for 7 weeks.
How about a 2 count to a fall?
1 count. Yeah.
Well, anyway.
Be like wrestling, amateur wrestling. Anyway, so Paul Heyman was backstage outside Baron Corbin's locker room, which he gets his own, and was interviewed by Kayla Braxton. He asked if Brock Lesnar is here tonight. The answer was apparently no. Heyman asked if Kofi and Rollins are here tonight, and therefore, is there an opportunity for Brock Lesnar? And the audience booed at the notion of Lesnar cashing in tonight. And this was never revisited, nor even hinted by the announcers. I mean, at the end of the title matches, there was no, is Kofi susceptible to Brock? There was none of that. They didn't even tease it beyond this one throwaway interview segment. Yeah. Which I guess why build it if there's no payoff? But that's kind of the whole point is that you want to have this figure kind of ominously hanging over top of these title matches.
But I think we already get the idea coming out of, you know, great, what is it? Great, what the fuck? What was that?
Super Showdown?
Super Showdown. I think we already get the idea. They built that up, that Brock Lesnar still has the briefcase. He can appear at any
The man
time.
will fly halfway across the world to have his advocate trip and screw up his title running.
But I don't know if it really helps to have Paul Heyman constantly remind you. I think it's better to just leave it.
I mean, he's there at the shows, so I think that's just
so it doesn't mean you have to use him.
Baron Corbin then walked out and he said he has chosen his referee who will call it down the middle and will be unbiased. He says he doesn't need any help to beat Seth Rollins. He just wants someone to be a fair referee. Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens versus Big E and Xavier Woods. This match started off very different. Owens and Zayn destroyed Xavier Woods. It was like they were on special and hit all their finishing maneuvers.
Yeah.
Owens attacked him with 3 super kicks. It was a super kick club party.
Super kick club party.
I was trying to work them in together.
Oh,
like an
S Club. Oh my God. Wow. Okay.
He then hit a swanton from the top for a 2 count. Zayn tagged in, hit a blue thunder bomb, and then Owens hit a frog splash. Again, Woods kicked out, and they were frustrated that Woods continued to kick out. And they were going so heavy that part of me was thinking, man, are they just going to have Owens and Zayn just be this? They're just going to run roughshod through this tag division. But that was not the case. This was just a really different opening to the match.
You know, like I thought it was so awesome. Like sometimes you'll see these types of kind of like very different finishes for like a Goldberg main event. They'll come out right away and like immediately just go for the big moves, and then it's a race to the finish. You never really see it in like kind of like your minor tag team matches that, you know, on the mid card. But I thought it was so nice to get something different from your typical WWE tag team formula of match.
It grabbed your attention immediately, and it was a ton of heat placed on Woods. It was 6.5 minutes. You could argue it almost went too long of like just beating down this guy, and he had to fight from underneath. But then he finally made the tag to Big E, and it kind of turned into a match at this point. Woods got involved as well, lifted Big E up off his shoulders, and Big E splashed Sami Zayn. Zayn avoided the up, down, down. So Woods went into the corner, and Zayn hit a haluva kick into a pop-up powerbomb, which was an awesome tag team, a double team on Xavier Woods. All 4 go down after a lariat to Zayn, super kick to E, and then rolling elbow from Woods onto Owens. Audience was cheering all of this. And then Big E speared Sami Zayn off the apron to the floor. Woods then got knocked from the top when he was climbing up, and Owens hit a stunner for the win at 11 minutes and 5 seconds. I went into this thinking that this should be a very good match. It was above my expectations. I really enjoyed this a lot, and I think Owens and Zayn really needed the win. They need something, and maybe the tag situation is not the most ideal for them, but I was glad that they won because I think they have more to gain at the moment.
Oh yeah, they took probably like 5 pinfalls between both of them.
They have not
Monday
had a
and
good
Tuesday.
couple of weeks.
Yeah. I thought a really great tag team match. Like I mean, you know, you could say that about a lot of the matches on this show. Going in, this was probably like the least anticipated WWE card of the entire year. So this was one of those matches that I didn't really care to see again. But when by the end of it, it started spectacularly. It almost shocked the audience into caring. And it's a type of opening that you can only do with a team that's really as connected to the audience as the New Day. Because, you know, think about it. Like, what's the point of having the babyface shine when like they're already over to the point that the New Day is? Seeing Owens and Zayn together, obviously they have tremendous chemistry, and I think you've got to see them like be incredibly impressive again for the first time in I think a long while. So I also think the fact that you had Xavier Woods sell for as long as he did, even though, you know, it might have seemed kind of different, I thought it really helped for the finish, because he ended up taking the pinfall and really selling his injuries after a while afterwards. So it kind of gave you the excuse that he was blindsided by Owens at the beginning of the match, which led to him ultimately losing the match.
Yeah, it'll be interesting where Owens and Zayn are slotted, if they are going to be remain as a tag team, because on the heel end, you have heel champions. You've just brought AOP back onto TV this past week on SmackDown. I don't know where they necessarily fit in terms of that tag division. It's a little bit of a weird fit. You've got heel champions on Raw as well with the Revival.
Yeah, I wonder how many more, you know, kind of title defenses they're going to do for Kofi until, you know, he faces somebody maybe of note at SummerSlam. I could see him actually. I could see Zayn challenging for him after this.
Yeah, perhaps this was to heat one of them up, because I do not think you can stretch out another Ziggler match, and they need an opponent for Kingston in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Nikki Cross was backstage with Alexa Bliss, all excited about the title match, and Cross is now convinced that she has seen Bayley's true colors and hopes everyone else does as well. Samoa Joe Ricochet for the United States title. A rare slip by Ricochet during his entrance, where he did the backflip in the ring and slipped on the canvas and then made fun of it later online. Which I just bring it up because it's a rarity this guy ever slips, considering all the stuff he does. So Joe stopped Ricochet on the floor and ran his back into the apron, and the match became Ricochet being grounded and having to deal with all of Joe's striking and superior size. And the announcers were explaining that Ricochet utilizes his high flying, but there's more to his game than just that. but he is being grounded here. Ricochet finally got Joe off his feet with a springboard clothesline and followed with a Fosbury flop to the floor, hit a cabrata for a 2 count, and Joe hit this great-looking power slam out of nowhere. Joe then caught Ricochet off a handspring into a snap German, followed by an inside-out lariat. Some great offense here from Joe. And then Joe took him by the leg and then went to rotate him in the air, and he just crashed onto the mat, applied the coquina clutch, and Ricochet was able to snap Joe on the top rope to break free. Joe avoided the 630, went for a lariat, and then Ricochet attempted to land on his feet, hit a code breaker, and then climbed to the top, hit the 630, and pinned Joe in 12 minutes and 20 seconds. Very surprising outcome, and this was a different style of Ricochet match, but I thought it definitely worked.
I thought it was great. I think these two paired together incredibly well. I think Joe, to me, is still at his best wrestling as a powerhouse going up against high-flying cruiserweights that are much smaller than he is. And I think Ricochet, for the underdog character that they're trying to portray with him, having a monster in Joe to play off against is really kind of the perfect opponent for him. Somebody who can wrestle as fast as him and just deliver like great power offense. They had great chemistry to me. Every move that I thought both men tried to execute was done with almost near perfect execution. I feel like this might have been a match that maybe took the crowd a little bit more time to get into at the beginning, but once they did, I thought the rest of the match was incredibly successful in eliciting a huge reaction. So to me, it certainly lived up to the expectation of a match you would expect from these two.
Yeah, I thought it was a different style of match from Ricochet, but it really worked. I enjoyed this a lot. This was one of my more favorite matches on the show, and I was definitely surprised by the outcome with Ricochet winning. And watching this, I mean, it's impossible not to envision Samoa Joe in that Baron Corbin role, especially like harassing Becky Lynch, and just like, I think he would be so awesome in that role.
He'd be way better than Corbin.
I mean, it's not even a debate. And I could not help but think that, like, watching this, like he's in a good spot, but he could be in a better spot.
Hopefully this is the transition. I don't know how much more he needs to prove, but I think Joe versus Rollins is a match that they're kind of out of options, to be honest. And I think Joe is one of the best options out there. So.
Joe going right to Kofi, that's something you could do. And maybe they don't even bother with this Ray program with Joe. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows how long. But, Ricochet as US champion, it's fine. I almost wonder if it's not too early, but the problem is, like, the US belt means nothing right now. So, it being on Ricochet, I guess, is a nice little kind of like trophy that you can add to him. But ultimately, how we'll regard the belt is how they'll book Ricochet. So hopefully
I think based on what we'll see later, I think they're just going to put this guy in super hot television matches with AJ. Yeah, when Ray comes back, I think that's maybe where Ricochet finds himself.
I mean, all of these secondary belts need long reigns, need somebody to hold on to them as like a signature reign in order to lift up kind of the value of these belts. Hopefully Ricochet is that person.
Quick, who's the Intercontinental Champion?
Finn Balor.
You're on top of your game.
I actually thought about it during the show.
I was thinking about it as I set that question up. I had to remember. And a guy who was also not part of this show. So Ricochet walks to the back. I like this. He goes to the back, and there is Seth Rollins. Charlotte Flair, which was a weird one to include here.
You're right. Yeah.
She was the one that just, to me, it was like a strange one to have, along with Heavy Machinery, Hawkins and Ryder, Carmella, and then the main eventer, Paul Levesque, to give him the big congratulations. And then you just hear Heavy Machinery's music play, and they walk out. And I kind of like this transition. It was just something. Here they are. They're ready for their match. I like Rollins kind of being presented like, here's the guy who's the locker room leader.
It's
Charlotte.
Yeah, that is kind of. I didn't even realize she was there. So you can look at it as maybe as a transition, but I mean, I'm sure maybe some of the idea is to have you think about potentially what a Ricochet versus Uncle Paul match might look like further down the road.
Ricochet and Uncle Paul?
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know if Ricochet is at that. We'll see.
By WrestleMania?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if they see Ricochet ever getting into, like, that's a big spot to be paired with Uncle Paul.
Not Bear. So, eh?
No, I would venture to guess that is not happening, but maybe, perhaps. Daniel, by the way, while we establish that Paul Levesque is there, it really does kind of throw the logic out the window of Baron Corbin getting to name his referee to just be like a heel referee.
Well, maybe he said no.
Who said no?
Triple H. What are you saying? Like what?
The fact that Baron Corbin, he was allowed to announce the referee. That's all well and good. But you've clearly announced someone that's going to bend the rules, and it's going to be a one-sided match. And I think it kind of makes Paul Levesque look kind of like an idiot here. Like, here's this guy. Is he not like kind of your babyface authority on the main roster?
I don't know. Is he a babyface?
I'm trying to remember what the last light he was presented in was.
It was Batista. Oh, no. It was
he's been on TV since.
Randy Orton. He faced Randy Orton.
Yeah, as a babyface.
I don't know, dude.
Okay, well, it's like
maybe he was overruled by Vince.
Well, I was looking for some explanation. Daniel Bryan and Rowan versus Heavy Machinery for the SmackDown tag titles. As expected, Bryan received a thunderous reaction, the loudest on the show so far. Everyone is chanting for him, and Tom Phillips acknowledges that they are in the last stronghold of the Yes Movement. They're still clinging to it here in Washington. The audience booed when Otis was in with Bryan and sent Bryan down after a collar and elbow tie-up. And, to his credit, I thought Otis just played with the punches and was not like affected by the crowd, and just kind of, I thought they handled it fine, and they probably expected it going in as well. And they didn't worry about it. I think that they overthink these things at times. Like you just explained, this guy is from Washington. Of course, they're going to cheer him. So you have to work a different style of match. Like, I don't think this has to be this national emergency that, oh my God, these guys are getting booed and they're getting cheered. Like, I think it makes sense. He's in his home territory. The crowd started chanting, "Please recycle and drive a Prius."
Yes.
Among their
I
chants.
love that. And Captain Planet.
Yeah. I missed that one. Bryan wrapped Tucker's left leg around the post, which would affect him later on. And Otis continued to get booed. Bryan hit his running drop kicks and then was caught with a sit-out power bomb. Later, he's landing the yes kicks, and they have no effect on Otis, who just starts like hulking up. And he was hilarious here, but the audience was hating him. But he was still having a great time. His
dancing is his Hulk up.
It is his Hulk up, yes. And then stopped Bryan with a T-bone. Otis hit the Caterpillar, and then he took Bryan, catapulted Bryan into a Uranagi from Tucker, which was a cool tag team maneuver. And Bryan then went back to Tucker's leg with leg kicks that was injured from the post spots. Tucker went for a top rope moonsault, and Bryan nearly didn't get out of the way from taking all of it. And then Bryan landed a flying knee to Otis from the top. Tucker cut off Bryan and took out Rowan with a dive to the floor, returned, and Tucker was caught by Mr. Small Package.
Yes.
Bryan Danielson, who pinned him at 14 minutes and 18 seconds to retain the SmackDown tag titles. I thought this was Heavy Machinery's best match since they were called up. Yes, Bryan had a huge part in that, but I thought that they had some good moments in this match as well. Like this didn't drag for 14 and a half minutes. I thought this was a well-done tag match.
I agree. I thought this was another really good match, and especially impressive, I think, for Heavy Machinery, because they're probably in somewhat unfamiliar territory here, getting booed. But I thought they handled it pretty well, and I think you really do have to chalk it up to Bryan playing the ring general here. I thought Bryan was excellent throughout this entire thing, but among Heavy Machinery, I thought Otis was excellent in this match. He not only shows a great deal of personality, but I thought in ring his stuff looked really good too. Rowan is solid. I think of the four, I was probably a lot less impressed with Tucker, who by the end doesn't feel all that exceptional in any way. But
I understood here he is in a big match and probably wanted to do that moonsault, but I really hated that the leg was such a big part of Bryan's attack, and doing you're selling the knee and then you do a top rope moonsault. It's like one of those things. It's just, okay. You just want to do your big move at the expense of the story that you're telling. Like they did the post spot, and then Bryan went back to it later with the leg kicks. Like that was a big focus of, and then he couldn't kick out of the Small Package at the end. So I just thought the top rope moonsault was just pretty much, hey, look, I can do a top rope moonsault, but to me, it wasn't the time for it.
Yeah, I thought it was a good match, and thus far, this show was impressing me.
If I turn the show off, thumbs up.
Yeah,
this was a really good show up until this point. Next up was Bayley and Alexa Bliss for the SmackDown Women's title. Early on, Bliss is very frustrated as she had the advantage, but Bayley kept kicking out, and Bliss slapped her in the corner. And then Bayley hit this somersault into an elbow drop, almost like the Rolling Thunder, but with an elbow drop, and then got cracked with a right from Bliss. Bayley then comes back, hit a running knee strike to the head, and Bliss pulled Bayley around the post while and then grabbed her right shoulder. So she's selling the shoulder. And Bayley came back, sent Bliss to the floor, and took out Nikki Cross with a suicide dive. And Bliss then hit her with a code red, pulled her into the ring, went for the twisted Bliss, but Nikki Cross is still upset about the dive. So she climbs into the ring and goes after Bayley and causes the twisted Bliss to get messed up. Bliss put her back in the position. When she finally went for the twisted Bliss, Bayley was able to get her knees up and hit the Bayley to belly for the win, 10 minutes and 39 seconds. And I thought this was average.
Yeah, I thought the promo battle on Tuesday was one of the best things on SmackDown, but I didn't think the match was very good. I thought Alexa's offense looked really lackadaisical and almost just kind of boring. I would say this match is much more of your typical WWE style, like long, unearned chin locks from Alexa to Bayley. And I thought the finish with Nikki getting involved was not only cliche, but I didn't think it was all that well
Very
executed.
contrived.
It was just not believable. The way that they executed it. So I actually preferred Becky and Lacey to this. Even though this match maybe didn't have as many screw-ups, I thought the pacing and the energy of the Lacey-Becky match was superior to
And
this.
they had a better crowd for it. I mean,
it was a better match.
It was. I'll give you that. I didn't think either were great. To me, this was where the show kind of turned around. This was 2 shows for me watching. And I thought this was the turning point. So they're advancing the Bliss Cross storyline. And afterwards, Cross was consoling Alexa Bliss, who wasn't really selling that she was upset at Nikki Cross, but that was what you were led to believe, that she lost because of Nikki.
How ironic. She begged the whole time for Nikki to help her and then ended up costing her the match.
Then, you and I haven't talked about this. They recapped Drake Maverick's 24/7 title win on Tuesday last week when Drake dressed up as Carmella. And then they aired the footage of R-Truth winning the title back during Drake Maverick's wedding in one of the best videos this year.
It was great. It was great. You know, when this whole 24/7 experiment started, I think everybody was somewhat groaning, but the potential always existed for them to be creative through moments like this. And I think Drake Maverick, along with R-Truth, is one of those guys who's really making his mark using this concept. For a guy like him, like this thing is really the only path he has to holding any sort of WWE championship and gaining any type of significant role beyond that of like a manager or a GM. And he's been taking full advantage. The timing with his wedding coming legitimately during this time, I thought worked out perfectly for the guy. That tweet from his wife that they aired in front of the live audience got a big reaction from this crowd. So everything is clicking with Drake Maverick in the 24/7 title.
I mean, Drake Maverick and R-Truth, like, they are the strength of this division. They are your 2 best
it's
people.
It's not to say other people can't step up and that other people don't have that potential. Like broken Matt Hardy coming back for the 24/7 belt would be really interesting as well.
Yeah, I thought this video was great. Even the blocking of it, where he's walking, they've got married, they're walking down the aisle, and then you just see the referee with like the over the shoulder shot. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
It was really great.
It was great.
And
it was
Truth
nice.
Just jumps out of the pew.
It's fun to like spot the cameos as well.
Yes. Yeah. There were a handful of people that you could spot. Ricochet is getting photos taken with the United States title. Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows walk in, followed by AJ Styles, and they all took a photo together. And Styles told Ricochet that he will see him tomorrow night. So heavily teasing that match for Raw on Monday.
Yeah, and I guess AJ and the club are just back together.
They seem to just be
even though they failed
clicking.
Oh yes.
Yeah, they got their 4th Bullet Club member was also backstage. We saw him earlier, Uncle
That's
Paul.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Drew McIntyre versus
but AJ versus Ricochet, to me, that's a pay-per-view worthy match.
It's maybe they'll just tease it on Monday and hold it off.
Yeah,
they could. So it looks like AJ has either been cleared or they're hopeful he will be cleared in time for Monday night. So, and then he is scheduled for the Sumo Hall shows at the end of the week too. Drew McIntyre versus Roman Reigns. This match kind of reminded me of the Triple H Randy Orton match, where it was a long match. They had a way better crowd than Orton and Hunter did, but it really wasn't until the end that I thought they really got into this. They went 17 minutes and 19 seconds. It started with this huge dive from Roman, and they brawled on the floor. So that was a pretty impactful start. And then Reigns chased them through the audience. And then as he came back, he leaped over the barricade and got struck down. And Drew went to town on him and just worked on his arm forever inside the ring. I was worried about your heart rate significantly during parts of this match. Reigns came back with a Samoan drop. They just, you punch me, I punch you, you punch me, I punch you. They went to the floor. Reigns missed Shane and went into the steps Reigns called for the Superman punch and then sent Shane off the apron with it and then hit another when he came off the steps. Then he missed with the drive-by, allowing Drew to hit the inverted Alabama slam onto the announcer's desk, so he took over again, set up for the Claymore, and Reigns avoided that with a backslide. McIntyre hit the Glasgow kiss and then leaped off the top into a Superman punch. McIntyre kicked out of that. Then Reigns hit a spear. Shane pulled the referee to the floor and hit a coast-to-coast drop kick onto Roman, who was set up in the corner. Drew again goes for the cover. Reigns kicks out. And then Reigns finally hits a Superman punch onto Drew, sent Shane to the floor, and hits one final spear to pin Drew McIntyre. As I said, the ending where he got clear of Shane and hit the final Superman punch spear, audience reacted to, but I thought this went really long. And I usually get into Roman's big matches, but I don't know. With Drew McIntyre, with WrestleMania, and this one, they didn't for me.
Yeah, I don't remember the WrestleMania match really all that much at all. I do remember maybe not being as into it, but I also saw that one live. So maybe that kind of had, a role to play into it. This was also a match that I really was not looking forward to at all. But once it got going, I really got into it. I actually think these two have excellent chemistry together. I think Drew is like big and powerful enough to make Roman look like a convincing underdog. All of Drew's offense looks fantastic. And I thought Roman's comebacks, while I don't think the crowd were as into them in the beginning, I thought they were all relatively well executed. So by the end, I think with all the near falls and I think with Shane's involvement, they had this crowd completely hooked. To me, the one blemish was perhaps Shane, perhaps getting too involved in pulling the referee out of the ring. Like, he pulled the referee out so much, he like got in there with him. And at that point, it was just almost like stupid to think that the referee didn't notice Shane's involvement to not DQ the match. To me, that was like the one blemish. I don't know if Shane was supposed to be as involved as he was, but beyond that, I thought this was another good match on the show.
Yeah, maybe I'm in the minority. I don't know. This one did not click for me. I just thought it went too long. But you're right. Like, the audience did get into the end. So again, maybe I'm in the minority here. Afterwards, the announcers were kind of going into overdrive here to state that this has to be the end of the chapter involving Roman with Drew McIntyre and Shane McMahon, which later in the night we would find out is not the case.
Yeah.
I think they have to get this to Extreme Rules, at least.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I don't know if you can push this to SummerSlam. I really don't think the heat is there for Roman to get his hands on Shane and get his win back.
It's not.
I think I think tomorrow night you do the handicap match and Drew and Shane beat him with a bunch of weapons, and that sets up your handicap match at Extreme Rules. Roman wins, and that's it. That would be it. Roman's on to a title program or something for SummerSlam. That would be how I would end this.
With Seth? With who though?
Possibly Seth, yeah.
Yeah.
Or something. I'm not saying
we'll
it has to be a title program, but I don't think it's this. I don't think Roman and Shane is enough to carry you through the summer. I think it's just it's a waste of Roman at this point. Like, we've done this. It's been long enough.
No, it just, I don't know how much more they can really kind of exhaust the combinations here. You've done Elias, you've done Shane, you've done Drew McIntyre. I don't know if it's a hot enough program for you to do those rematches at all.
Kofi Kingston versus Dolph Ziggler, steel cage match for the WWE title. Ziggler was in control. He's taunting Kofi until Kofi fought back. Ziggler attempted the famouser and it was blocked, and Ziggler got run into the cage. Then they fought on the turnbuckle. Ziggler got rammed into the fence and fell down onto the canvas. And Kofi, they thought, was climbing up, but then he just turned into a reverse cross body, so he stayed in the ring.
How stupid is that? It's like another one of those things, like it's the Jeff Hardy thing, where rather than get the win, the babyface decides to jump. And the announcers called this out. Not only that, after Kofi managed to land the crossbody, he didn't even go for the door. He decided to take the hard way out and decided to climb back up. And I wouldn't even have that much of an issue with it because I could suspend my disbelief enough. But the announcers called this out. So we're all supposed to think how stupid Kofi Kingston is.
Kofi hit an SOS. Ziggler stopped the Trouble in Paradise, and then he worked on Kofi's knee for about an hour. Then turned into an ankle lock and just kept hold of the leg. Kofi finally broke free, but then got caught again. Kingston finally reversed, applied his own ankle lock. And I thought, after being in this a submission for so long and then you reverse it, got no reaction when he finally turned the tables. Yeah. And Ziggler hit the zigzag to get out of that quickly. The crowd started to get behind Kingston. Ziggler is crawling for the door. Kingston grabbed hold of him. Ziggler then gouged the eyes. And as Ziggler is trying to crawl out, the door is open and Kofi gets up, dives over the top rope, lands on the floor. I thought he was going to blow his shoulder out, and he won the match in 19 minutes and 56 seconds. I felt every second of this one. I don't know. This one to me was I wrong on this one? Do we agree on this?
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought the finish, let me just say, was very unique. And I think for a match, like a match as often used as a steel cage match, where we've seen pretty much every conceivable finish, I thought this was really a unique way to end it. So kudos to Kofi Kingston as, a performer who can execute these very spectacular, unique finishes. The rest of the match, though, there was nothing technically wrong with it, but it never grabbed me. I think they just spent a lot of time in there doing the same old thing, rubbing each other's faces into the fence, teasing these climbs, then ultimately not getting them. And then they spend a long time working on this, like doing this leg story, which I just don't think works very well visually for a steel cage match at all. And I can't imagine even like what the audience live must have felt like if even at home we're watching all this and it's just not a captivating steel cage match. So
ask yourself, like, steel cage matches, yes, for a long time they were the match to build up. Like that was, and a lot of it was the booking of cage matches. You were getting a definitive winner and a loser from a blood feud that has been built up, and this is the end. And today, with this modern style, a steel cage match only means they cannot do all this other stuff that you want to see in a big 20-minute match involving talent. Like, I don't want to see AJ Styles or Seth Rollins or Ricochet in a steel cage match. To me, it's like, it's just what they can't do.
I want to see brawlers in a steel cage match.
Sure, when it's called upon and there's something for it.
Like, I want to see a bloody steel cage match, but I don't necessarily want to see like a high flyer and an amateur wrestler inside a steel cage match, which is what this was.
Yeah, and I'll give it to you. It was a clever finish, but it's also like, what a goofy way to beat someone. You know what I mean? Like,
why?
How's he? It's like, okay, I jumped farther than you, and I'm the winner.
Isn't the concept of the steel cage stupid to begin with, though?
It is. Like, it's inherently silly that it's just like it's like an obstacle course that you just got to like escape from. It's an escape room. That's what this is.
It's an escape. Yes, that'd be a great match. Imagine like clues, guys, people have to solve in the cage to get out.
Bella Brains played in an escape room,
and you have to figure out the combination.
Yeah,
lock. Brilliant.
I like escape rooms. They're a lot of fun. That's what I watched here. I didn't enjoy this one. I do hope that this was not done for some Ziggler saying you never beat me kind of.
It is true. This didn't really
I feel like this is a match where they could come back with it in 3 weeks. Yeah. And man, I'm done. I'm done.
I certainly do feel like the lack of credibility attached to Ziggler as a challenger definitely hurt this as well. It's not like it's not like a match where you really couldn't predict what the finish could be.
I think they're saving the Trouble in Paradise definitive win. I think we're probably getting another one of these.
He had the definitive win, didn't he? How did he win that?
The Super Showdown was he did it with the help of Big E and Xavier. Right.
Oh,
so this time he escaped without pinning him.
I never thought for a second
that was the whole point of this steel cage.
I'm saying, oh please, to the idea that might be an actual possibility, because the fact that we're even getting a Kofi versus Dolph Ziggler trilogy, like coming off of WrestleMania, is weird to me.
Listen, I don't know. I'm not saying like wink wink that they're doing this. I really don't know, but this feels like it's 3 weeks. That's the other thing. It's not like this is a 6-week turnaround to the next pay-per-view where you can build someone up. And
but they built Dolph up like in no time.
Who would you put with Kofi? Like it's not like they've heated up anyone either.
I would put anybody on the roster.
They're not going to Roman.
I would do. Let me think about this. Shinsuke Nakamura.
Okay, but it's like you got to start from scratch on Tuesday.
Start from scratch. You started from scratch with Dolph Ziggler.
Yeah.
Rusev.
Well, he's got time off right now.
Okay.
So that was the end. Big E and Xavier came out to celebrate with Kofi. And this is where we go backstage. Drew and Shane are upset, and they're interviewed by Kayla Braxton, who mentioned Roman Reigns got the last laugh. Shane announced a handicap match tomorrow with Roman Reigns on Raw.
Yeah.
So now you can name the wild card that's coming to Raw. We learned that. You don't have to apply for it. Remember? Before it was like the individual had to.
Who can name it?
Well, Roman's been summoned to Raw now.
Oh, okay.
For this match.
I mean, it's Shane, though, I guess. He could do whatever he wants.
Okay. Why doesn't he make it like 4-on-1?
It's a great question.
With the Revival and Elias, get them all in.
Yeah.
It could be 5-on-1. Anyway, that's what I think. I think they're just going to set up the weapons match or whatever stipulation for Extreme Rules.
Man. Okay.
I think you're going to just get a lot of rematches for Extreme Rules. That's somewhat what it feels
There's something wrong when you're like, because you have so many cards stacked back to back to back, deciding to make them look incredibly similar. There's something wrong with that.
Main event, Seth Rollins, Baron Corbin for the Universal title. Corbin came out to announce the referee when Seth Rollins took the microphone and threatened to attack whoever the referee is if they're going to screw him out of his title. So Corbin announces Lacey Evans, who he cannot attack with the chair.
Yes. Yeah, interesting. Did we actually predict like something? We guessed Becky as like a joke guess.
I thought that there was a really strong the way that Seth laid out all the guys on Raw. I mean, I think throughout the week, most people were assuming it was going to be Lacey or Becky or a female.
Okay. It could have either been a woman or a child. That would have been interesting. Nicholas
Cone. Yeah. Corbin got attacked from behind Corbin attacked Rollins from behind using the chair before Lacey ever called for the bell. And the audience immediately started chanting for Becky. When they realized Becky wasn't coming out right away, they moved on to "This is stupid," AEW, CM Punk, and boring.
Yep. Daniel Bryan in there as well.
The audience could not care. They realized we're getting the heel ref gimmick for 15 minutes where Rollins would have Corbin beat and Evans would either be too slow or wouldn't make the count. Then we got it was ruled no countouts after Corbin was put through the table with a power bomb. Then it was no disqualifications once Corbin came back and started using a chair. Rollins has to fight both Corbin and get over Lacey Evans' heel tactics. At one point, when she went to count 3, she held her arm for the 3 count, and Graves said, well, that's a result of the disarmer, which I'll at least give him points for being clever. That actually ties in. Mm-hmm. Rollins got distracted with Lacey, so Corbin attacked him with more chair shots. This is when the DQ stipulation was thrown out. Evans had slapped Rollins, and he was hit with a low blow. Corbin hit the end of days, and finally, Becky Lynch runs down for the huge pop. And John Cohen is summoned as the new referee, who was the referee in the Super Showdown that begat all of this and allowed Corbin his choice of official. So now he was instructed to take over the match.
So he gets some justice himself.
Rollins makes his comeback, hits the stomp, and wins in 18 minutes and 23 seconds. I'll again say the positive. They did, from Becky's run-in through the finish, the audience was into this. I will give them that.
Well, it required the rest to get to that point.
It was the 17 minutes beforehand that, I'm sorry, this was not, wow, what an awesome heel Baron Corbin is. Yeah. This was total indifference. This was such a substandard level for a pay-per-view main event. This was such substandard for a Seth Rollins pay-per-view match. I thought this was just, I thought the second half of the show was really low. I wasn't as into the Reigns McIntyre match as you were. So from Alexa Bliss Bayley onward, like this was a tale of 2 shows. One was thumbs up, one was thumbs down for me.
Yeah, I could see that. To me, this match, I agree with you. I thought the pop at the end was very successful. You know, we understand now all the weeks of them building up Seth and Becky as a couple on TV incredibly forcefully and awkwardly to lead up to this and, you know, to future things to come. I get it. I hate the fact that this was the main event because it ends up being kind of the signature of what the show is ultimately going to be remembered for.
I don't know what else they could have ended this show with.
I feel like the Kofi Dolph match, even though it wasn't as good, I think that at least left a better taste whatever. Listen, I think it's a misread of what the current audience demands. This type of very sports entertainment, man, like, boyfriend helps the girlfriend type of storyline.
The heel referee thing sucks. It sucks because you're telling your audience this is just to get to the next plot of the story. You are not getting anything conclusive. You're getting bullshit for 15 minutes plus.
But it worked in the Attitude Era, and Vince will always go back to his playbook. It worked with Sean, I guess, like the multiple times he's been special ref, like all this other bullshit. And this is their playbook to build to Seth Rollins teaming up with Becky Lynch against Baron Corbin and Lacey Evans. So I understand all that. I just hate that it was the main event because to me, it's a bad representation of, I think, what the rest of the show, and I think really what the audience demands. I thought it was really stupid how long they made Becky wait before she got involved. To their credit, Becky did deliver some justification for the wait on Twitter. She said, "You can slow count, you can slap him in the face, but if you not shot him, then expect an ass whooping." So low blows are out of the question, but I guess everything else is totally fine. I also it really did bother me, the messaging in this match. And that's that a woman can attack a man, but a man can't attack a woman. To me, it's just really risky, dangerous territory that I think is almost kind of irresponsible for a professional wrestling company in the public light, like the WWE, for them to craft a storyline around. They had Lacey Evans like physically slap Seth Rollins multiple times, and they've done this like all throughout the mixed match challenge. Yeah, and I understand, like, of course it's it's whatever it is, but if you're not willing to do male versus female violence, I don't think you should do female violence on men either. I think you should just completely stay away from it rather than try to like do this double standard, because in real life there are people that don't respect that difference, and I think if you're the WWE, you should just not get involved at all.
Well, they flirted with it back with Nia Jax and Randy Orton at the Royal Rumble and with Dean Ambrose, and then dropped it cold. But if you're going in this direction at Extreme Rules, you're almost like promoting that if you tune into this match, Seth is going to get his spot on Lacey Evans. That's what they're going to tease, whether they deliver it or not.
You want to see at the end of this match, and I think that's just terrible.
Yeah, I think that's going to be kind of what they're going to be teasing throughout this.
Well, Seth Rollins isn't going to punch Lacey Evans, and like the idea was, like Becky is the substitute.
Well, there was a time they didn't want the stomp period. They're definitely not doing that visual.
Yeah. We'll see. But I agree with you about the show.
I can only go thumbs in the middle. And man, I really don't want anyone throwing out like we're being negative, because I love this show up until the tag. Like, this was a solid thumbs up, and I think it was interesting that in the first half of the show, you had clean finishes up and down. You had the people went over that I think the audience wanted to see or made the most sense. And then I think we got into a completely separate presentation for the second half. And I thought the second half really pulled the show down. I can't say thumbs down, because that first half, I really enjoyed it. I was like, man, this show the first half felt like a show, like, here are a bunch of people who have a chip on their shoulder about people are dogging the show. It's not it's not a full house, it's a half house, and they're going to go out and work their asses off. And they did. I thought the majority of the people in that first half, and there were people in the second half working hard too, but I didn't think they overcame certain factors.
I thought booking ruined them. Like, the main event was kind of doomed from the beginning.
I don't blame anyone in the main event. I think that thing was it was the wrong match, and people have known it from the very beginning. Like, there is a role for Baron Corbin. It is not in the main event challenging for the Universal title.
Shall we go to some phone calls before we go to the board?
Absolutely.
Well, first of all, let me just tell you what the board voted this show. 5.53 out of 10.
Wow. Well, that's, yeah.
It's about on
if we had done that poll at 9:00 p.m., I think it would be very different.
Yeah. Hey, caller, what's up?
Hey, it's Paul from New Jersey, guys. How you doing tonight?
Hey, Paul.
Yeah, overall, I like the show, but like, definitely listening to you guys, and the feeling I got is like Becky and Kofi are like, and even Seth are really good champions, but it really is about the dance partners. And I think Corbin and Evans, like, I think Evans stinks. I don't think she was ready. And Corbin, I'm not as low on as a lot of people are, but to me, that guy's like a manager / wrestler mid card act. Like he's got mid card written all over him to me.
Agreed.
And
Like
really
believe me, there's a place for him, and I think people detect like you move some of these pieces around. I think it's a much easier card to digest. And I mean, just like listen, everyone knows where Lacey Evans is, and she has a lot of potential. Charlotte would be way better in this role.
Absolutely. Yeah. You could have like, I don't want Lacey or Baron gone from the company, but I just think like after tonight, I just think it's been so indicative in Seth, and, you know, Seth and Becky can only do so much. And like you said, John, I think it's a disservice to Seth. And I'm just hoping with Ricochet becoming US champion that he could just feud with AJ Styles. And I think we talked about on Wednesday, you guys asked like, who would you have Seth face next? I think Samoa Joe is your guy. He doesn't have that title anymore. You can do the callback to when Seth tore his MCL or messed it up before the Triple H match at Mania. It was from the Coquina Clutch. And you can just have Joe be a creep with Becky Lynch the same way it was with AJ Styles. I just think like you have this roster, and I mean, I'm looking at the company overall. You have 215 performers on this roster, and if your challengers for your two hottest babyface champions are Lacey Evans and Baron Corbin, you got to change that and start booking to something else.
Yeah, and they have actually announced Ricochet AJ officially for tomorrow, so that's the plan for tomorrow's Raw. Yeah, I think Joe is wide open now and should be placed with either of those guys. I don't think it's going to be Seth because I think we're continuing with this for the immediate future, but Kofi needs a big heel coming off this Dolph Ziggler program. So whether that's as soon as Extreme Rules or they're going to pump out one more Ziggler match, I think that Joe should be positioned higher for one of them for SummerSlam.
Yeah, definitely. And unfortunately, like you said, they're pushing like with the awkward build of Becky and Seth. It's definitely going. I think like what you said, it's going to Corbin and Evans. So yeah, it would definitely be cool to see in Joe. I mean, it doesn't matter if the wild card. Joe can go anywhere. So yeah. Thanks.
What was your match of the night, Paul?
Funny enough, I really liked Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn against the New Day. And I just, like you guys said, I think Owens and Zayn needed that win so much, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a great match.
Not surprising at all. Yeah, they really got the crowd from the beginning with that special type of start. So thank you for the call, Paul.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
If you would like to call in, 732-800-4423 or Post Wrestling on Skype. We're going to be going to the forum, but if we get any calls, we will interrupt to go to them. Let's start off with Alex from Maple. Watched this from work tonight. I must say it was better than expected, but that's not saying much. Main event, while a bad match and entirely too predictable, still got fans excited, so served its purpose. I don't like the steel cage escape finish. It seems very odd for a face to win like that, but it was unique. Overall, better than expected, but still not good. At least we might get AJ versus Ricochet.
Let's go back to the phone lines. Hansi, you're on.
Yo, what's going on, guys?
Hey, Hansi.
I just want to say that I actually enjoyed the show. I agree with you guys that it went downward after a bit, but I gotta say though, even though I wasn't really excited for the Baron Corbin and Seth Rollins match, because I just Corbin just doesn't do it for me, like at that level. I did like the plot twist of Lacey Evans because I was anticipating the pop when Becky Lynch came out. You know what I mean? And the fact that they're introducing that, I actually dig it. That I personally think that if you want to get over a heel in a dastardly way, I don't know how this would come across, but if let's say Joe is feuding with Seth Rollins next, like for SummerSlam, I say you can have Joe like kind of choke Becky Lynch out or something, like do an angle where he actually harms her. I know like violence on women wouldn't really fly, but I think once in a while they do something dastardly, and because like they're presenting like a woman on the same level as a man, you can still like have her like try to get revenge back or something like that. But I mean, it would be kind of cool to see like to get at Seth Rollins' head that somebody tries to lay out Becky. You know what I mean? Like to do something dastardly heelish. I don't know if you guys are feeling that, but I don't know. I think you could do something like that.
I can't really see them having Seth Rollins, their WWE champion, one of their top faces, attack Lacey Evans. I think Nia Jax is different because Nia is physically larger than Seth Rollins, but Lacey is smaller. I just don't see them doing that.
I also look at this program of how much you want to push Becky into a role where it's Seth coming to her aid. Like they have that is not Becky's character, and they're putting her into that position.
Well, in this case, They did the opposite.
Tonight they did the opposite. You're right.
Yeah.
But in this instance of an angle like that, where someone were to attack Becky, I just don't know if you want to make Becky this vulnerable character, because that's not her. That edge has been so key to her getting over this last year.
I hear you. No, I hear you. But I one last thing before I go, I gotta say that even though Otis and Tucker didn't win, I felt like this match really put him over, and I really do think Daniel Bryan, man, that guy. I know we always praise Daniel Bryan, like, you know, amongst like these circles, but dude, he's doing like some of the best work. I know people want to see him in the main event again, but I really like that he's trying to make the tag division actually matter again. You know what I mean? And I wouldn't mind if, like, for SummerSlam they actually have a unification match, because I just think there's not enough tag teams on each division, and the wild card rule is ruining everything anyways. So I do think that they should maybe the Usos or the Revival or something like that. I think they should unify the titles if that goes down for SummerSlam.
I'm all for it, Hansi.
Thank you so much, guys. Good show as always.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hansi.
All right. Why don't you go to one here?
All right, we go to Sean from Toronto, who says, I actually thought the show was not too bad until the main event helped to demonstrate everything wrong with WWE today. I hate Baron Corbin as a top heel, and Lacey Evans is being pushed too high for someone with her level of experience. I would have been happier if the show had ended with Kofi versus Ziggler, since that was actually decent.
AJ from Pennsylvania really enjoyed the first half of the show. Cruiserweight match was excellent. Yes, I don't think the Cruiserweight match is getting enough praise.
By the time like the show ends, you kind of forget about it. I mean, that should have main evented
the show.
Yes,
it should have gone on last. That would be a powerful statement. Ricochet and Joe had a really great match with a surprising title change, and the tag was fun as well. I really checked out during the Reigns match. Interesting that the announcers put it over as a finale to the feud, though. Rest of the card was meh. End of the main event was great, but cliche, and the audience just doesn't buy Corbin as a main event guy.
We go back to the phone lines right now. Bethany, you're on the line. What's up?
Hey, John. Hey, Wai. How are you guys?
We're doing well. What'd you think about the show tonight?
Well, I really did not care about this pay-per-view. The only match I watched in full was the Samoa Joe Ricochet match. I caught a little bit of the other matches here and there, but I really didn't care. I didn't expect Ricochet to win, but I was glad that he did. And then there was that backstage segment with Ricochet, and then Anderson and Gallows showed up, and AJ came out and challenged, supposedly challenged Ricochet to a match on Raw. And my question was, like, where do you think this is going? And do you think it will lead to AJ, Anderson, and Gallows reforming the club?
I think they're definitely hinting towards that alliance, which
I think they've already reformed.
They may already be all back together. Tonight was the big reunion at a photo shoot. So yeah, they're promoting the match for tomorrow night. I would be happy if they extended this, because you throw an AJ and Ricochet on the Extreme Rules show, I think that instantly grabs a lot of interest, and it needs very little buildup.
What stipulation would you add?
Oh, right. Well, all matches are created equal, way, so maybe
2 out of 3 falls, elimination.
Put them in a steel cage so they can't do any flying.
Everything.
Yeah, I could see them potentially going that direction beyond tomorrow, but I see tomorrow being almost more of the focus on AJ with the club.
Well, I know that they have that show in Japan with, you know, Triple H. He's gonna team himself up with the club in Japan. I'm not really happy about that, but that's beside the point. But I mean, I'm glad to see AJ and Anderson and Gallows getting together, and I was really happy to see the match between AJ and Ricochet, because I think those guys can have a great match if they give them enough time and don't give them some, you know, stupid stipulations.
You know, as you bring up the shows at Sumo Hall, they're on Friday and Saturday. I think it would have been a really smart idea. I know we're talking about how many shows they put out, but to air one of those on the network that would serve the purpose. You've shot an angle with the Iconics. So, I mean, there's a reason for people to see that match. You would think that they'd want that showing. That to me is all the rehab you need for Shinsuke Nakamura, because he's in a prominent match.
Yes.
And that instantly is the reset button for Nakamura to get that kind of a reception and a strong showing. And I just think the novelty of WWE being in another country, it just makes the product come across really hot. And I would look at one of those shows, just throwing it on the network. I don't think they're going to do it on such short notice, but I think there's a lot of value to that.
Well, like they did a Starcast, was it not that long ago, where they showed select matches from a house show. I mean, we've had Beast from the East. I guess there might be sort of a budget involved in getting a camera crew out there.
Absolutely.
But I agree with you. I think it's worth it for those select matches. Cool.
I would love to see that. Like I said, I don't care anything about Triple H being involved, but I would love to see the reaction from the fans with AJ and Anderson and Gallows in Japan, and also with Nakamura, just to see how the fans react to him as opposed to, like what he's kind of been, what he's become here in the States.
Yeah, maybe they'll Hunter will win, and then he'll take photos with each person in the match right afterwards.
Well, it's like he congratulated Ricochet tonight after he beat Samoa Joe and won the U.S. title. So good old Triple H, he's always got to put himself over.
That's Way's WrestleMania match next year. Hunter and Ricochet.
I could see it happening.
It could. There's always those possibilities. Thanks so much for the call, Bethany.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it, guys.
All right. AJ also had a question here at the end. How do you think Jon Moxley is booked in the G1? Should we save that for our?
No, let's answer it now.
How do you see him? Do you see him being?
I think he'll be booked really strong.
I think he's going to be alive going into the final week.
I mean, I don't know if he'll have a role at. I don't think he's going to win it, but I anticipate he'll be on more New Japan shows if they're able to use him, and I think they're going to want to keep him strong and not completely job him out or anything like that.
Well, we know he has to. Even if this is going to be a short-term thing, he has to lose that U.S. title at some point.
Yes.
He mentions here, who do you think gets a win over him? I don't know all the losses he'll have, but I think it's a guarantee that final night of the B block, he loses to Juice. Yeah. And I think they do that rematch. Juice beats him for the title. And that might be it for Moxley. He might not be available beyond that. He just works one more show after
in that case,
G1.
It's been a great brief relationship. You get him for the G1, you get him to have Juice win over him. So that
him for
really
a few months, and then maybe a destruction show in September he loses to Juice, and that's a great rollout that you got out of Moxley for those couple of months. I think,
although there are dream matches still you could do with Jon Moxley if he's not going to be around after this year.
Well, who knows? It's like all we know is that in terms of working New Japan, it's just been established he can't do them in the US. It doesn't seem like there's anything preventing him from doing future New Japan shows. It's going to have to coordinate with him being part of the weekly television. So if his schedule permits, I'm sure he sounds like he's having the time of his life doing stuff there.
We go to Chris Kent, who says, definitely a bottom heavy show. Glad they didn't go with Brock, as it made no sense for Corbin to invite someone who could cash in should he win to be right there. Based on the chemistry between Becky and Seth, are we sure they aren't just friends? Or is it that Seth pissed Becky off last night, which is why it took way longer than should have been necessary to have her run out? What do you think of the on-screen chemistry between Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch?
It would not surprise me if they're not crazy about this. It's very foreign to their characters to have romantic love interests on screen, especially given their characters. Yeah. So
I think if they were strictly acting and not even in a real life relationship, you'd probably see some more actually more natural interaction, because then you would have an actual story building up the relationship. Instead, it's just, something being taken directly from life, and it's got to be weird to,
it's very difficult
to have, you're kind of 5-month-old boyfriend or girlfriend suddenly have to turn that into a character and a storyline.
Yeah, and weave it with your current character. That's I think for Becky especially, it's like her character you don't associate as, you don't even think of her as having a boyfriend.
I do like the nickname though, the man's man. I think that's pretty clever.
Oh, well, afterwards they had the photo of the two of them leaving, and WWE used the hashtag Brawlins. BRO. I'm I don't even get it. You just took one letter of her name.
Well, that's what you do when you ship a couple.
I'm sure you could do better than that.
I think so too. Brawlins.
Raw Lynch.
Her Lynch is her last name. Breath.
God.
Okay. All right. We go. He also says, overall, I could have made the drive to see this live. I used to complain that Vancouver never got any TV or pay-per-view, but I'm happy with my decision to not have. That was an incredibly weak main event, though I do kind of wish I could have seen Gulak finally, after so long, get rewarded. He absolutely deserved it.
Andrew from Cape Breton, good show tonight. It seemed that because this show in particular had received a lot of negativity, a lot of the wrestlers had their working boots on. Best match of the night was the opening Cruiserweight match, and I was happy for Drew Gulak winning. I also thought Heavy Machinery kept up well with Bryan and Rowan, and then an excellent match despite the weird babyface heel dynamics. I thought they made that work.
Oh, absolutely.
I thought they dealt with the curveball very well, and probably wasn't that much of a curveball to them going in. That they knew what they were going to get, and they worked around it, and it was fine.
It was a great performance from Bryan, and I thought Otis got a lot out of it too.
The two lowlights were the awful Raw Women's title match and the main event. When I saw Lacey Evans was the guest referee, I thought that if she's as good of a referee as she is a wrestler, Seth Rollins was going to get screwed over. There's something about Baron Corbin that's just boring. He seems like he can put the moves together, but there's just something about him that's very off-putting. Anyway, I thought it was an overall great show, and most everyone worked their asses off because they didn't want them kicked and their names taken. 7 out of 10.
We got a Gerard who said the show started off above expectations, but went downhill around Bayley versus Alexa. Kofi versus Ziggler was so dull, I briefly dozed off during it. The main event was an overbooked mess that was an example of everything wrong with WWE these days. I did have a chuckle at the fact that Triple H inserted himself in the celebration of Ricochet's U.S. title win.
Joey from Queens. I originally had no intentions for watching the show, but when your buddy calls you and offers free booze and food to watch the show, you really can't say no. Most of the matches were mostly boring, but some weren't actually that bad. However, the kiss of death was what I couldn't care less about any of the matches, with Joe Ricochet being a slight exception because they're killer workers. The highlight of the night was the Tacoma Dome chanting, "He recycles and drive a Prius." Can't get much more babyface than that. 5 out of 10. Sounds like Joey had a great night.
Yeah, beer and free booze, sure. We got a JT who says, is Balor hurt? Also, do you guys think Big E is close to a big push? I get that feeling. Maybe Kofi loses to Reigns, and the story is Kofi couldn't beat Reigns, but Big E can.
I haven't heard anything about Balor, and yeah, I just don't think he was figured in. He was also doing the program with Andrade, who has had some unfortunate losses in his life. His mother and his aunt just passed away, so it almost feels like that program is just on hold. And we had this quick turnaround, like they just didn't have a slot on the show.
Do you think Big E is close to a big push?
We always say that, and they don't really.
Clearly, they don't want to separate the New Day. I mean, it seems like his role right now is to be in a tag team with Woods. Maybe do a rematch with. I think they should challenge Rowan and Bryan.
Yeah,
for the belts.
Could do that. I mean, Big E just peeling off, even not doing a breakup, just going the singles route. It's a numbers game at the moment. Like there's so many people there that it's really tough.
Mm-hmm.
Who's up? Me?
Oh, it's you. Yeah.
Okay. Better than I expected. Although we left during the. This is someone who was there live. This is Hagaki. We left during the tag match to get ice cream and they weren't there live. They just went to go get ice cream.
All right.
Dolph Kofi was great for a cage match. Even main event was fun because I love to hate Baron, and Lacey was so over the top, and it ended early so we could watch the main of Wrestle Circus, which was really nice of WWE. So there you go. Someone who was happy.
What's your favorite ice cream flavor?
I do like mint chocolate.
Mint chocolate.
Yep.
I've been obsessed with black sesame ice cream.
Black sesame ice cream.
Amazing. It's actually more expensive than the other kinds, but I highly black sesame ice cream. All right, we got a Steve from BC who says, while it was not the best show ever, I thought this was a pretty solid outing from the WWE. Considering the interest level heading in, I thought they overachieved tonight. Aside from the SmackDown women's match, the crowd seemed to be into everything on the show. Standout matches for me were the Cruiserweight match, Ricochet and Joe, and I thought Roman and Drew was also very solid. As for the main event, while I still don't care for Baron Corbin in the spot he's in, I thought the selection of Lacey made sense to the story they were telling. I really didn't understand the crowd shitting all over this as bad as they did in the beginning. The match may have been a tad overbooked, but they got the reaction they wanted by the end, with Seth overcoming the odds and setting up a mixed tag for Extreme Rules. 6.5 out of 10.
All right, Bryan from New York, thumbs up show for me. With so many upper card stars sitting out this one, expectations were low, so I had fun with most of these matches. I've been enjoying the Kofi Championship run and thought it was a really creative way to end a cage match. Hopefully they have someone strong lined up for Kofi because he's been holding his own with some underwhelming feuds. Happy for Drew Gulak, who has been putting in the work for the last 2 years to get to get to this point. Thought it has been way overdue to get the title on him, as he's been one of the best parts of 205 Live. The main event was handicapped by the booking and the number one contender, but story-wise, I thought they did a good job with the story and payoff, considering how often they were signaling the Rollins-Lynch relationship. Now that Joe is free of the U.S. title, I'm hoping he turns into a strong opponent for Seth. I love the idea, like, you ditch the secondary title and it's a promotion.
No.
Like, you're lost. Like, yes, I lost this albatross. On that note, I'm very excited to see where the club versus Ricochet goes. I'm hoping they don't waste the match prior to Extreme Rules, but we'll see. Do you think tonight's involvement of Triple H might mean he'll be involved in the feud going forward? They do have the promoted club and Triple H match scheduled for Japan later in the week, so there might be an opening for a storyline. Man, everyone's really... I didn't give too much thought to the Paul Levesque thing, but clearly, I mean, he was there for a reason, I guess, to have some affiliation with Ricochet.
Yeah. I mean, we're just trying to think what the reason might be. I'm also thinking back to the photo that they're probably going to use of like a very young Ricochet with like long hair posing with Triple H.
All right. Is that everyone? Jay from Colorado adds, did you guys know that Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch are dating?
Yeah.
It has been made very clear. All right. That is it, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to our Stomping Grounds post show. If you enjoy these, well, don't worry. We'll be back in 3 weeks, apparently, where all podcasts are created equal.
That's right.
Here at the post office.
But even beyond that, we're going to be back for a lot of these weekend pay-per-view reviews, because next week I'll be joined by Davey Portman while John takes a little weekend vacation. I'll be joined by Davey Portman to talk about AEW's Fyter Fest, and we'll be doing a live show probably as soon as it's close to when the pay-per-view ends. So if you're a double Ice Cap or Espresso patron, you have access to that. You can call us, you can do all this stuff, and it'll be a blast.
Yes, we'll have the full schedule out on Monday, and then Wai and I are back Monday night with Rewind to Raw, followed by all of our regular shows, including the return of Rewind to Wai this Friday. And if you are tuning in and want to catch this magic live and in living color, Sunday, August the 11th, we are going to be at the John Candy Box Theater, located at Second City, downtown Toronto on Blue Jays Way. The show is the afternoon of SummerSlam, 1 p.m. start time. We're going to be doing a live podcast recording with a live Ask Away. We'll be doing a Q&A and a meet and greet immediately following, and you can get your tickets postwrestling.com/live.
Make sure it's a /, not a backslash.
I learned my lesson. I got yelled at by everybody. /live.
They should write forward. Like, which way is forward?
Which way is the wait? This was a debate we had for like 20 minutes once.
Yeah, but why is it forward? Why is that not considered forward? Like, is it pointing from the front or the back or the top?
This is literally art. I can't believe you don't remember this.
I don't remember half this.
The archivist is going to dig in and he will remind everyone.
Okay.
All right. In the meantime, go check out postwrestling.com. Thank you for supporting the Post Wrestling Cafe, and we will chat with you Monday after Raw.